What's up guys, my name is Ace, and a big trend we've been seeing over the past several years with Call of Duty is they really like bringing in remade maps from previous Call of Duty games. And I think it's safe to assume that Cold War will be no exception here. We are most likely going to be seeing some remade maps throughout the year. So in today's video, I wanted to share my thoughts on that, as well as which maps from previous Treyarch games I would like to see come back in Cold War. Now, to be very clear up front, personally, I do prefer well-made original maps over having map remakes. So I would much rather have a well-designed map that is brand new, that I get to learn for the very first time. I find that to be a bit more exciting than just having the same old map remakes coming back with a map that I've already played a ton of in the past. However, I do think bringing back some of the old maps is great for nostalgia purposes, and it's a nice complement to the original maps. I just don't want remade maps to sort of steal the show and be a huge part of the game. I would much rather they just sort of sprinkle a few in there alongside some original content. Now, before we get into the list of the maps that I personally would like to see come back for Black Ops Cold War, I just wanted to mention that as of right now, there are 4 remade maps that are rumored to be coming to Cold War already. And these ones are, first up, Nuketown, and I think that one's pretty safe to assume that's going to be in the game. It's been in every single Black Ops game. It'll almost definitely be back in Cold War. But then also we have Firing Range, Summit, and Jungle. And when it comes to these ones, as much as I like these maps, I was a little bit disappointed to see these ones as the rumored maps to be coming back, because every single one of these was remade for Black Ops 4. Like, we just played these a ton 2 years ago, and for many players that didn't like Modern Warfare and stuck to Black Ops 4, they're still playing these maps today. So with these ones, I don't really feel like it'll have that same nostalgic effect as other maps that haven't been recently remastered, at least. But in either case, let's go through my list of maps that I think would be cool to see returning for Cold War, keeping in mind that I'm only going to be focusing on maps from previous Treyarch games, obviously not going to be branching into Infinity Ward or Sledgehammer or anything like that. So let's start off with Black Ops 1, and the first map that I think would play well for Black Ops Cold War is Grid. This is a nice, small to medium-sized map. It's got a little bit of room to breathe while still maintaining pretty constant action. So if you ever want to get in the action on this map, it's pretty easy to find. But it's not so cramped that there's no room to move or make decisions. So I think that would be a cool one to see come back. And also, I wouldn't mind seeing Kowloon return as well. This is one of the DLC maps from Black Ops 1. And this is where you're in the rooftops of like a shantytown area and there's zip lines and stuff. Cold War already has the zipline mechanic in there, so that could be easy to integrate. And I just thought it was a really interesting map that completely changed up how we viewed Call of Duty maps at that time, at least, because ziplines were pretty innovative for that game. But one last one that I wouldn't mind seeing from Black Ops 1 is Hanoi. This is that nighttime map, and I just thought this was a really interesting map. It didn't have a super traditional map design, and I feel like it would fit in with the gameplay style of Cold War as well. But next, moving on to Black Ops 2, which is my favorite Call of Duty, and I think has some of the best maps in the entire Call of Duty franchise. First up, we have Raid, and I actually consider Raid to be one of the best Call of Duty maps ever. It's the perfect size in my opinion, it's got lots of options on either side of the lanes, and it's also balanced very well. There isn't really a super strong side. I really felt like either side of the map could be the strong side, it just sort of depended on how your team was playing. But this brings us to the next one from Black Ops 2, and this is Standoff. I think Standoff is a very well-designed map for competitive play. And I know we did see it remade in Black Ops 4, and it might not have that full nostalgia value as some of the other maps, but I just think it's such a good map overall that I wouldn't mind seeing it remastered again. And after this is a map that you might be surprised to see on this list, but I think it's a super underrated map. I don't remember it ever getting talked about too much in the past. But this is Yemen. Yemen is an extremely well-designed map in my opinion. There are lots of clear power positions that have excellent counters to those power positions. And also the lines of sight are really well controlled in this map. If you are trying to rush around, if you are trying to move from point A to point B, once you learn the map, it's pretty easy to control your lines of sight and control your lanes and ensure that you aren't being shot at from way too many directions at any given time. I also like that it's not super traditional, it's not extremely symmetrical or anything, it has a nice unique feel to it, and I think the overall size and layout would work well with the mechanics that we have in Cold War. Now I could easily pick a few more maps from Black Ops 2 since I liked so much of their map design, but I want to try and keep this video at least relatively balanced here, so we're going to move on to Black Ops 3. Now, Black Ops 3 is a little bit tricky since we had advanced movement in Black Ops 3, and the map design was really heavily based around this advanced movement. Or at least sections of each one of the maps were designed with wall running in mind, for instance, which we obviously don't have in Cold War. Having said that, I think with some of the maps, a simple piece of scaffolding or something would easily solve that problem. So an area that was previously a wall run could just be a small scaffold that you have to run on, and it would basically just be problem solved right there. And I do think there are a few maps that would work very well from Black Ops 3 if you did just include a few areas where you have some scaffolding or maybe some extra ladders in some areas. And the first one is Hunted. I really like how Hunted played in Black Ops 3, and I think it would play great with boots on the ground as well. We do have these swimming mechanics in Cold War, even though none of the regular like 6v6 multiplayer maps that we played in the beta for Cold War really properly integrated swimming. Like in Miami, you could swim in the pool, but it's not like it was really meant to be a big part of the gameplay experience there. Whereas with Hunted, we would have a little bit of that water to play with, which just adds some nice variety to the gameplay. I realize a lot of you realism people are going to come out and say it's so unrealistic to shoot underwater, but at the end of the day, this is a video game, and that is an intended mechanic in this video game, which we clearly see on Armada. You're supposed to be able to shoot well underwater. And like I said, I do think it makes for a more interesting gameplay loop when you have some key sections of underwater areas. So I think Hunted could potentially work well in Cold War. Then another map from Black Ops 3 that I think could work well with boots on the ground is evac. Evac isn't a map that relied too heavily on wall running unless you were doing the crazy outside of the map wall run, but you can play just fine without that. And then there is the middle area where people would wall run, but again, a little bit of a scaffold there, problem solved. I think that overall layout of evac was quite nice, and I definitely wouldn't mind giving it a shot with boots on the ground. But this leaves us with one last map for Black Ops 3 that I think could work with Cold War, and this is Fringe. Fringe is that map where you're on a farm and you've got the barn and the farmhouse and there's like the train area as well. This is another map in Black Ops 3 that didn't necessarily rely too heavily on the advanced movement, and therefore I don't even think very many adjustments would need to be made, if any, to make this boots on the ground ready. Like, maybe they could provide a ladder or two for the farmhouse and the barn just to provide another way in to those power positions, otherwise they might be too powerful. But aside from that, I think the map would play just fine boots on the ground. But that's pretty much it for Black Ops 3. Now I just want to briefly touch on Black Ops 4. Personally, I don't think they should bring any maps back from Black Ops 4. Not necessarily because the maps were terrible in Black Ops 4. It's just, it was our most recent Treyarch game, and it was just released 2 years ago. So, in my opinion, it is a bit too soon to try and feed off of nostalgia with that. But if there's one map to choose from Black Ops 4 that I wouldn't mind seeing how it would play out with Cold War, this would be Contraband. Contraband is another one of those maps where it has a sort of key swimming area where it is quite important to the gameplay, and I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of that mixed in with Cold War. But also outside of that, I just think the map generally plays quite well. It's another one of those maps where there isn't necessarily a clear good side and bad side of the map, and it's able to achieve that without being perfectly symmetrical. So yeah, if I were forced to choose one map from Black Ops 4 to come back in Cold War, I think it would be Contraband. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for my list. I believe that was 10 maps from previous Treyarch games that I would kind of like to see how they would play in Cold War. I'm not necessarily saying I hope all 10 of these come back. I just think if they are going to be picking maps, it would be nice to see them pick a few from the 10 that I've listed. Again, just wanted to restate the fact that I definitely prefer original content over this remade stuff. But they're almost definitely going to be bringing back some remakes, so I might as well share my thoughts and my input on that. And this is where I want to hear from you guys. Just focusing on previous Treyarch titles, which maps would you like to see come back to Cold War? Which ones do you think would play well with the Cold War mechanics? Just let me know those maps in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.